Vast, mysterious and enchanting, the ruined city of Palenque is considered to be the most beautifully conceived of the Mayan city-states and one of the loveliest archaeological sites in the world. The palace has 13 vaulted houses and a tower surrounding 4 patios. 3 underground galleries make up the structure. Construction of this complex took approximately 200 years. Striking features of the palace are the stucco moulding that decorate the pillars of some of the houses and the mural painting mainly on the interiors. This complex was the center of the administrative duties and daily life of Palenque's nobility.
The walled city of Cartagena on Colombia's Caribbean coast, founded in the 16th century to become a key port of entry for African slaves. The same slaves who carved out this canal by hand, connecting the Caribbean to the Magdalena River. But in 1599, a small group of slaves escaped and established a secret community 50 kilometers away in what was a dense tropical rainforest. Today, descendants of the founders of San Basilio de Palenque, the very first free black town of the Americas, still venerate Bencos Viejo, the slave who led them to freedom.
I am from Palenque, which carries with it respect. Palenques are respected wherever they go, so I am proud to be a black man from Palenque.
San Basilio's 4,000 residents continue to live mainly from livestock and agriculture and preserve their ancestors' language, which is taught at school. Barbara Herrera, who grows peanuts, tells us in Palenquero that it was invented to fool the white man. Her recipe for peanut balls was handed down from her ancestors. We are also treated to a sample of Combile Sami's music. It combines rap and reggae with traditional African instruments and sung in Palenquero. Indeed, the connection here with Africa is still remarkably strong.
The Palenquero feels African. For example, every time an African team plays in the World Cup, even if it's against Colombia, that's whom we'll cheer for.
This is San Basilio de Palenque's cemetery. Even now, people tell us that when they die, their souls go to join their ancestors. But not here in Colombia, but rather in Africa.
The town has been named a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, not just because of its history, but because of the Palenqueros' determination to keep their identity and heritage alive, more than 400 years after their ancestors cut off their chains. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, San Basilio de Palenque, Colombia.
Bienvenidos a San Basilio de Palenque.
This stop here is about 10 minutes away from Palenque. Come here to use the bathroom, or at least the most comfortable bathroom. Come here to get jugo de lulo and just have a pit stop before you go into Palenque. Okay, so this is my favorite juice in the whole world. This is jugo de lulo. It looks like this. It's the super sour fruit, but if you add a lot of sugar in it, it makes it good.
To the right, we have one of the typical houses of the community of Palenque, which are called Casas de Bareques. Bareques is an instrument or something that was used between the mud stick and the doodle of the cow. So that's something they used as a cement to put them on the wall, so the wall could be there really, and with the sun drying out, they were staying so hard, so they could stay there for 60 to 70 years. So right here we have something which is called tierra ripa. This is our land, my land, your land. This is when they say Atauto Bega, welcome to the community, and you just say Así Nombre. In the black letter it says Africa e America Andi Palenque. This is Africa and America considered.
The Spanish who first brought enslaved Africans to Trinidad after Christopher Columbus visited the islands in 1498 and claimed it for Spain. Great Britain took control of the islands in 1802 and slavery was abolished in 1834. From 1968 to 1970, the Black Power Revolution gained huge traction in Trinidad, with thousands of young people joining the movement. This led to a number of protests intended to effect social change in Trinidad. The government declared a state of emergency and several Black Power leaders were imprisoned. However, the government did eventually implement a number of the policies that the protesters had lobbied for. African influences in Trinidadian culture are present in food, music, dress, and religion. Calypso music is derived from a West African genre called queso, which enslaved Africans brought to the islands. Famous Trinidadians include Eric Williams, who was the country's first Prime Minister, and Machel Montano, a world-famous soca singer.
Hi guys, I'm Faida, and today we're going to be talking about the African diaspora in China.
Freedom
Now, usually in these videos, we look at African diaspora communities that have been living in various countries for hundreds of years already. Although Africa and China have a long shared history, the African diaspora in China as we know it today is predominantly a migrant population that has arrived in the last 30 years, enticed by the trading potential in China's industrial boom.
In fact, the largest migrant African population in the whole of Asia resides in China. In 2014, there were reported 500,000 Africans living in China, of which the largest settlement can be found in Guangzhou, the fourth largest city in China, 75 miles northwest of Hong Kong. Other concentrations of Africans live in Beijing, Shanghai, and Yiwu. The dominant languages are English, French, Arabic, Swahili, and Igbo. The African enclave in Guangzhou is informally referred to as Chocolate City or Little Africa. In 2014, Guangzhou had 16,000 residents from the African diaspora, including many men who intermarried with Chinese women and had mixed-race Afro-Chinese children. China and Africa have been regularly trading since the 7th century, when Arab traders during the Tang dynasty trafficked enslaved Africans to China. The Chinese referred to the Africans as Kunlun, loosely meaning dark skin, and regarded them as being unruly, ignorant, and frightening. Over time, throughout the Tang and Song dynasties, Chinese perceptions of the African diaspora became more nuanced, with some Kunlun being portrayed in folk tales as heroic. During the Yuan dynasty, a number of African commodities were imported to China. Among Afro-Nicaraguans, there are several distinct ethnic groups. These are the Creoles, also called Afro-Antillians, the Mestizo Sambus, the Garifunas, and the Afro-Mestizos, descendants of enslaved Africans brought by the Spanish. Enslaved Africans were brought to Nicaragua from the mid-1500s onwards to work on sugar plantations or indigo mills. In particular, they were located around the city of Bluefields, which to this day is mostly inhabited by people of African descent. Many Afro-Antillians migrated to Nicaragua in the 19th and 20th centuries to work on banana plantations owned by the American United Fruit Company. The Palo de Mayo festival, Maypole in English, is celebrated in the month of May every year and originated among Afro-Nicaraguan communities in Bluefields in the 17th century. Famous Afro-Nicaraguans include June Beer, an artist, poet, and activist, and Charlotte Aline Moses, a model who was the first person of African descent to win the title of Miss Nicaragua.
So I was on the plane and this person sitting next to me heard me speaking Spanish with somebody else that was sitting next to me, so they were pretty shocked. And the person next to me was like, the minute I heard you, I knew you were Dominican. And I was like, then I went on explaining how I'm from Honduras and that there's black people there. But the person wanted to go back and forth with me and told me I was not black. I'm like, how you gonna tell me I'm not black? So then I went on explaining, the difference between nationality, race, ethnicity. But the person refused to believe that I was black. And then I was like, I'm not talking anymore, forget it.
The level of ignorance that is bred in the United States of America is just never ceased to amaze me. Yes, black people speak Spanish, they speak French, they speak Swahili, they speak every language in the world. My God.
Have you heard of the only unslaved African descendants in Central America? How can a culture so unknown preserve its legacy? On our land, being Garifuna in Honduras.
Mi nombre es Nelson Herrera, soy Garifuna.
My name is Wilson Marin, and I am Garifuna.
My name is Amina Arsu, and I was born in the U.S., but I'm still Garifuna. Deep down inside.
Mi nombre es Adner Roberto Morales Matay. Soy Garifuna.
I'm Garifuna. I'm from Trujillo.
Yo soy netamente Garifuna.
Garifuna ya hondo.
Soy Garifuna.
Soy Manuel Luis.
Garifuna. Garifuna.
African diaspora in South Korea largely comprises Africans and African Americans who have moved to Korea to study or work, or who were deployed by the US military. There is a small community of Afro-Koreans who are the biracial children of Korean women and African American servicemen. This dates back to the 1950s, when the US deployed forces to South Korea during the Korean War. South Korea saw an increase in mixed-race half-black children, many of whom were adopted by families in the United States. In 2020, many K-pop stars and K-pop fans showed support for the Black Lives Matter movement, with the global supergroup BTS and the South Korean media company Big Hit Entertainment jointly donating $1 million to the cause. Famous Afro-Koreans include Han Hyun-min, a popular actor and model, the Congolese-born Korean-raised TV personality Jonathan Donna, and the Ghanaian-born TV presenter Sam Ochere. Did you know that the Philippines was under Spanish colonial rule from the 1500s to 1898? The Philippines was actually named after King Philip II of Spain. Some of the earliest Africans to arrive in the Philippines were brought as slaves during Spanish colonial rule. Let's fast forward to the Philippine-American War, which lasted from 1899 to 1902. The United States deployed an estimated 6,000 African-American soldiers in the Philippines, a handful of whom deserted to join the Filipino resistance fighters. The most famous of these was David Fagan, who fought with the Filipinos against US forces for almost 2 years. A bounty was placed on his head, but he was never caught and his fate remains unknown. Some contemporary famous Afro-Filipinos include Apple to App from the pop group The Black Eyed Peas and the actress Asia Jackson. In 2016, she created the hashtag Magandang Moreno, which means beautiful brown skin, to challenge colorism in the Philippines. Singapore is a city-state in Southeast Asia. In the early 1800s, there was a small community of Afro-descendant people living in Singapore called the Caffreys, who were descended from enslaved Africans brought to South Asia by the Portuguese, Dutch and British. At its height, the community of Caffreys in Singapore comprised about 62 people, according to a survey conducted in 1834. Famous Afro-Singaporeans include Mak Pak Shi, the former leader of the Singaporean Labour Party. A number of African footballers have played for Singapore's national team. The group Afro Sings is comprised of 3 Afro-Singaporean siblings who have garnered great success on social media. In 2019, a play was performed at the M1 Singapore Fringe Festival called Ayat Hitam, A Black History of Singapore. The play intended to educate audiences about the history of Afro-descendant people in Singapore. The organisation BlackNet Singapore is a networking group for Black professionals living there. The first recorded Black person to receive Finnish citizenship was a woman called Rosa Lemberg. She was born in modern-day Namibia and was brought to Finland by missionaries in 1888. In 1904, she migrated to the United States, where she taught at a Finnish language school. During the 20th century, a handful of Afro-Finnish people fought in the armed forces, such as Corporal Holger Sontag, of whom a photograph exists. Nowadays, Afro-Finns is a non-profit association for people of African descent living in Finland. In 2018, they created the Afro-Finns Achievement Awards to celebrate the contribution of the Black community in Finland. Various media outlets also focus on positive representation, such as the platform Ruskiat Tutot and Diaspora Glitz magazine. In June 2020, an estimated 3,000 people gathered in Helsinki in solidarity with the global Black Lives Matter protests.
Hey guys! Today we're going to be talking about the African diaspora in Scotland. From taxidermists to football captains, you are going to love this dose of Scottish Black history. So let's get started. My name's Faida and welcome to Freedom is Mine, where we talk about Black history, culture and contribution from all around the world. Today we'll be looking at Black history in Scotland and I cannot wait to explore with you guys. But before we do, I have videos on tons of countries, so please check out the rest of our channel. Show us some love by hitting the subscribe button, and I have good news. We have even more amazing Black history content waiting for you for free on Instagram at Freedom is Mine Official. Last but not least, I'm excited to announce that we have a book on sale called the Afro Encyclopedia, where we explore Black history from 100 countries around the world. Check it out by clicking the link in the description. Now then, let's get started.
According to the 2011 UK census, about 0.7% of the population of Scotland identifies as Black Scottish. That's the equivalent of over 36,000 people. There has been a Black presence in Scotland since at least the 15th century. Early instances of Africans living in Scotland include the Moorish lassies, two African girls, Ellen and Margaret Moore, who arrived at Edinburgh Castle in 1504 and served as ladies-in-waiting to Lady Margaret, the daughter of James IV of Scotland. An unidentified Black figure appears in a Scottish tapestry depicting. The population of Denmark is almost 6 million, of which less than 2% are Black. Denmark was the 7th largest trading nation during the transatlantic slave trade, trading over 100,000 enslaved Africans to their 3 colonial territories in the Caribbean, the islands of St. Croix, St. John and St. Thomas. In 1917, Denmark sold the islands to the United States and they were named the US Virgin Islands. Well-known Afro-Danish people include Hans Jonathan, an enslaved man who took his Danish enslavers to court and subsequently fled to Iceland. Victor Cornelius and Alberta Roberts were children from St. Croix who were transported to Denmark in 1905 to participate in a colonial exhibition. In 1878, Mary Thomas was the leader of the largest labour revolt in Danish colonial history. In 2018, Denmark unveiled a statue in her honour called I Am Queen Mary, the first statue in the country to commemorate a Black woman.
Hey guys! Today we're going to be talking about the African diaspora in Venezuela.
Freedom is
In the 2011 national census, less than 4% of Venezuelans self-identified as Afro-Venezuelan, putting the population at just over 1 million. However, other sources estimate that at least 3 million Venezuelans have African ancestry. The largest Afro-Venezuelan population can be found in the region of Barlovento, 100 kilometers to the east of the capital, Caracas. There are also Afro-Venezuelan communities along the coast of Carabobo, the Distrito Federal, Aragua, and the southeastern shore of Lake Maracaibo.
Enslaved Africans began arriving in Venezuela in significant numbers in the 1500s, as the Spanish monarchy began to expand its empire across Latin America.
In total, approximately 100,000 enslaved Africans were brought to Venezuela. They were referred to as pieza de India and treated as products rather than people. During the 16th century, enslaved Africans worked in the gold mines in Coro and Yaracuy and did fishing and pearl diving in Isla Margarita and Cumaná. In the 18th century, they were brought to Barlovento to assist the cacao industry, as well as on sugar plantations in Lara, Aragua, Zulia, and Lake Maracaibo. Slave rebellions in Venezuela were recorded from as early as the 1530s. However, the biggest revolt in Venezuela took place in 1552, led by the Puerto Rican-born Miguel de Boria, also known as El Negro Miguel, who formed a settlement of runaway slaves known as a cimarrón or a cumbe. He reigned with his wife, Guiomar, whom he declared queen, and his son as prince, until their kingdom was attacked and reclaimed by Spanish forces.
One of the most famous black uprisings in Venezuela took place in 1795 in Coro, led by the freeman José Leonardo Chirino.
The rebellion was suppressed. Chirino was executed and his children sold into slavery. However, Chirino has gone down in Venezuelan folklore as a symbol of slave resistance. Nowadays, there is an airport named after him, and the annual celebration of Afro-Venezuelan Day is celebrated on May the 10th to commemorate the date his insurrection began.
Hey guys! Today we're going to be talking about the African diaspora in India. From military heroes to royal dynasties, India has centuries of incredible black history you do not want to miss. So let's get started. Hi everyone, my name's Faida and welcome to Freedom is Mine, where we talk about black history, culture and contribution from all around the world. Today we'll be looking at black history in India, and we have some great stories coming right up. If you want to know about other countries, then please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at Freedom is Mine Official, where we are serving amazing global black history content. And if you really want to support this platform, then you can purchase our fully illustrated book, The Afro Encyclopedia, where we learn about black history from 100 countries around the world, from Asia to Europe to the Middle East. So check it out by clicking the link in the description. And without further ado, let's talk about India.
Have you heard of the Sindhi? They're a community of Indians of African descent who can trace their roots back to a number of African countries, including Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Sudan, Tanzania, Malawi, and Mozambique. Today, the Sindhi community numbers an estimated 25 to 70,000 people, and they mainly reside in the regions of Karnataka, Gujarat, and Hyderabad. Depending on the region they inhabit, Sindhis speak a variety of languages, including Urdu, Gujarati, and Hindi. Some are Muslim.
Guys, I'm Faida, and today we're going to be talking about the African diaspora in Honduras, more specifically the Garifuna people.
Freedom is
Let me start by saying that in today's video we'll be talking about a distinct ethnic group called the Garifuna. There are Garifuna populations all over Central and North America, but for the purposes of this video we'll be focusing in particular on the Garifuna community in Honduras. So let's get started.
The Garifuna community are an ethnic group dispersed across Central America, the United States, and Canada. Their total population currently stands at 300,000. The biggest settlement resides in the United States, where to a certain degree they are absorbed under the vast and infinitely diverse umbrella term African American. The second largest Garifuna population can be found in Honduras, with small but significant concentrations in Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Belize. Honduras has a population of 9.3 million, of which 100,000 people are Garifuna. The Garifuna across the diaspora speak the local languages of the countries in which they live. In Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Honduras, they speak Spanish, and they speak English in Belize, the United States, and Canada.
The correct plural term for the Garifuna people is Garinagu. The word Garifuna refers to a single person, the language, and the culture. However, in spite of this, the Garinagu are widely referred to as the Garifuna.
Within Honduras, only two Afro-Honduran communities are regarded as being distinct ethnic groups. Those are the Garifuna and the Bay Island Creoles. The Bay Island Creole communities speak English and remain separate from their Spanish-speaking compatriots of the Honduran mainland. The Garifuna are the largest ethnic minority.
So your wife told me about the grocery store situation. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we have 12 grocery stores on the island. One of them is local and 11 is for Chinese, the Chinese community.
Chinese people own 11 of the 12 grocery stores here.
Yeah.
Do they live here, the Chinese people?
Yeah, they live here.
They live here, so they've come, they set up shop. Do they hire locals or only Chinese people?
They hire 1 or 2 locals. You could count like 1 or 2 locals. Most of them have their own workers. They bring in their own workers. They only keep a couple of them so they could talk Creole.
Yeah.
So the Chinese could learn it, and from there they tell them bye.
What?
Yeah, they need couple because when you
come,
when
you
go
don't
by, they don't know for speak Creole.
Oh yeah.
So they got a couple locals so they could learn Creole, and when they learn it, they tell the local bye.
Man, that's
the Chinese community. They're like piranhas, you know.
Yeah. Just blood sucking. Now, one last question for real. This is just so interesting. Do the Chinese people put the money that they get back into the community? Do they donate to community stuff?
Like a couple times they donate for the school, you know, but most of the time they just
take the money.
They just take the money. They just the last time they catch one of them at the airport with about $60,000. It's flying out.
Oh my God!
That's what they do. They always just take out the low US. They take out, you know, they just take the money.
Damn, man.
They don't do nothing with you. They just take the money. They're like they're rapists, you call them.
Mm-hmm.
They destroy everything, you know.
Damn.
Wish we could fix the problem, but
just gotta take work.
Yeah, it'll take a lot of work.
And the people in Belize, the black people of Belize, have to unite with the black people of the states and the black people of, you know.
We have to unite. All the black have to unite.
Yeah, all of the black.
North, south, east, west.
Yeah.
Guys, we gotta unite. Black,
all of the black.
Powerful.
Yeah.
We know black powerful.
Mm-hmm.
We feel it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Nice vibes.